All right, everyone. Thanks for still being here. Thanks for coming today. My name is David Ballard. I'm part of the RFC. And I am going to moderate and take the opportunity to let our career panel introduce themselves, where they're from, what their walk of life is, and what type of practice they're in. So if we want to just go ahead and start here, I have their names listed up here on this single PowerPoint slide.
No, you go first.
Yes, yeah.
All right, so I'm Nora Bancroft. I have done the gamut of work. So I've done academics, I've done a hybrid practice, and now I currently just moved into private practice over the summer. So I have a wide perspective to offer you guys.
My name is Ledermann. I started in academics. I am now a teleradiologist, but I also have startup interest in the watch space and artificial intelligence.
My name is Alexander Norbash. I've been a lifelong academician. I went into my residency in 1987, so it's been a long time. I also managed a private practice on the side when I was at Boston University, which lasted about 5 years. I've been a chair for a total of almost 16 years, and I'm an interventional neuroradiologist.
Hi, my name's Aimy Patel, and I am actually just in my third year of practice, but I have experience now in both academia, and now I'm more in a hybrid practice model. I'm a breast radiologist in the Kansas City, Missouri area.
All right. Thank you all very much. I'm going to start them off with questions, and please line up the microphones as you have some. Otherwise, they're going to have to keep hearing from me. So first, as residents, we're in an academic residency, we're in a community program, we're in a hybrid program. We're exposed to the one type of thing that we're in. Can you speak of some important decisions of, choosing what kind of practice are you going to go into, whether that be academic, private, or, something else?
So I have to say, I think you're young and you think whatever the first job you're going to pick is going to be the rest of your life, and that's not true. So I think you need to originally think of what is best fit for you. Just go by your gut feeling. Do you like academics? Does it make you interested in comparing cases every day with your colleagues? Do you like the efficiency of private practice where you can just go through a lot of cases? Is that fun for you? It just is your personality, and you do the best gauge you can. I think you need to talk to people who've been in that particular field. Talk to your attendings right now. Talk to past graduates who've come back, and they can give you their perspective on what they think.
You're far more eloquent than I am. My mantra is usually followed by the Wu-Tang Clan. It's cash rules everything around me. I believe in high quality work with high pay. That's why I have startup interests outside of radiology. I can tell you that academics is fantastic, and I 100% love it, and I still do it to this day, but I do it in teleradiology space where they pay me to do it. Okay, so anything is possible. Anything you can think of is really possible. It does kind of touch back to what you said. What fits you is the right answer. There is no right equation. It's a balancing act, and you will figure it out.
This could be a very lengthy answer. I'm going to try to minimize it for efficiency's sake. I suggest that everyone think about at least 3 sets of organized variables when you're thinking about what you should be doing. The first is, what are the tasks that I have to do on a daily basis as part of this job? And am I well suited to that, and do I like doing that? So for example, in my case, a lot of it is human resources and managing people. If I didn't like that, I'd be a failure. When I was an interventional neuroradiologist, it was doing procedures. If I did not like doing procedures, and the expectation was I would do procedures, I would be a failure. So the first question is, am I well suited, and do I like doing the job? That's question number 1. Question number 2 is the environment. What kind of environment do I want to practice in? What kind of people do I want to be around? Do I want them to be inquisitive? Do I want them to be efficient? Do I want them to work with me as a team? Do I want to be left alone to my own devices? So the environment, because we are aggregational beings, is critically important. And you have to like the people who you're working with if you're embedded in an organization. So you need to take your own pulse, and you can't talk yourself into liking people. It's an emotional response, so you have to be in touch with your own emotions. That's the second thing. So what is the job? Can I do that? Do I like it? What environment am I in? And then the third is hard to explain. There cannot be any cognitive dissonance, and I'll give you an example. If you're working in an organization for a person who you do not admire, and if you're doing a good job brings luster to them, there's something that's counterproductive about that. So you have to feel out any potential areas of cognitive dissonance where the way you feel in a circumstance or a situation is not effective and does not allow you to succeed because of some impediment. It takes thought, it takes conversation, it takes reflection. And again, just to reflect your point, I'm on my 5th job. So do not expect that first job to be the be-all and end-all, and I've loved every single one of my 5 jobs.
Sort of to build off of what Dr. Norbash and Dr. Bancroft are saying, you know, I actually switched jobs after my first year into practice. And I think it's really important for you to know, yes, that the first job that you take may not be the only job for the rest of your life, but if you switch jobs, don't feel like a failure. I have so many early career radiologists who right now are switching jobs, and they're reaching out to me saying, I just feel like I failed, and I'm on to my 2nd job or whatever. Don't feel like a failure, because you're still trying to navigate the waters of practicing. And unfortunately, I fervently believe that as trainees, our residency programs don't do a great job of really kind of describing what the radiology landscape is like. They really push for you to stay in academia. But the truth of the matter is that there's no one-size-fits-all for all trainees. And the majority of radiologists who go into practice end up going, the majority of trainees who go into practice, it's private practice. So, you really have to, like Dr. Norbash was saying, you really need to know, what is best for you. And if you, like for me, I was an academic starting out of training, and the pure academia wasn't for me. But now I'm in more of a hybrid model where I am employed by a private practice. I'm in a private practice group, but affiliated with a residency program. And for me, it's a much better fit. So don't feel like you're a failure, and really follow your dreams and your inclinations and inhibitions, because you've got to trust yourself with the job. And in the end, you will be making the right decision.
Thank you very much. So I want to build off of that early transitional change. How long should we invest into taking the right job? Whether it's we're getting early offers late in residency or going into fellowship, depending on if our goals are, I have to go back to my hometown, or I just want the best place for myself and my, family to live. What should be the time investment of saying, okay, this is the practice I'm going to work at, how early is too early, and what's getting a bit too late? To find the right job for you. Initial job, first job.
So that's fluctuated over the years. The pendulum has swung back and forth. When we were getting jobs, there were 2 job listings in the AJR, so you would take whatever was available. I think you guys have a better lay of the land right now. You guys are lucky. There are a lot of jobs out there, so that's great for you. As far as where you need to go, I can tell you I'm married to an interventional radiologist, and I'm just part of the equation. I can't just do what I want. It's a family situation, and so I think you guys understand that. If you're with somebody, you need to make everyone's happiness a factor. If you have a family situation, that's important. It's not necessarily the highest ranking job you can get at the highest ranking institution, unless that's your goal. I mean, if you want to go there at any cost, go for it. It's just a personal choice. But some people rarely will skip their fellowship and pre-take a job in order to get the job in a specific situation in a specific group, because otherwise it won't open up again for a couple years, and I understand that as well, but I don't recommend that if possible. I think fellowships are always important. If you have to switch jobs and you don't have a fellowship behind your name, I think you're hurting yourself, so don't try to do that. Otherwise, people will take 2 fellowships in order to wait for a perfect job opening. It's never too soon to start talking to a group if you have a very specific group you want to enter. So that's important as well. Contacts are important. It's a small world out there. I mean, I see some of my old medical students in the audience, and I'm actually one of 3 UMKC graduates on the stage here. It's a small world. Don't forget that. And contacts do matter. So if you're a nice person, you do your job and you do it well, it's amazing how many people will stand up for you and they will wait for you as a radiologist.
I am the other guy that is not part of that group and feels a little isolated. With that said, directing my attention solely to teleradiology, because I get that question a lot from residents and even from some of my peers who have been out for 5 years, they ask me when's the right time to possibly consider it. Because the American working force, even in radiology and outside of radiology, is moving somewhat to tele. My wife is an attorney, she works in New York. She does it via tele now. She's probably one of the first people for JP Morgan Chase to do that. And almost everyone is moving in that direction in some capacity. It doesn't mean all of us will, but a lot of us will eventually work from home or work remotely. I would say, just to give an exact number and not beat around the bush, I would say at least 1 year before you're going to consider it, and that's if you're wildly confident. I would probably say 2 years out, having your feet under you firmly in one dedicated space is what I would recommend. It is my opinion. That is just what I would say. I do musculoskeletal sports and spine. I stick just to that. I do a little bit of ER work, kind of general work, because I can always sort of punt. We all know the term, right? I can punt a pancreatic tumor to an abdominal specialist. I can punt a GI issue to somebody else. So I feel like I can sort of still maintain that ER availability for a group, but really most of my day is one thing. And staying in my own lane gives me efficiency, and it also has given me the ability to sort of transition out earlier. If you want to do generalized work, I think you have to add to those years because you're going to be living on an island sometimes by yourself. Not to say that's the sole methodology that which we practice. There are plenty of people I can reach out to on a day-to-day basis to get help, but I would say 1 year at least if you're wildly confident, 2 years if you're in one lane.
My path was circuitous. And for me, the problem wasn't the job and which job did I want, but what did I want to do? And I had a tough time figuring it out. So let me tell you about some of the zigzags, because I think this may resonate with some of you, I'm hoping. So I started off in medical school on my radiology rotation. In particular, I spent 4 days with Fong Sai, who at the time, in 1984, was an interventional neuroradiologist in Kansas City, who was angioplasty in carotids, embolizing meningiomas with microspheres, doing WADA testing, doing all kinds of stuff that I'd never even heard about. I just came off my surgical rotation, and I thought that surgery was a little bit medieval, and this was really something else, and this was the future. So I said, Dr. Sai, I want to do what you do. He said, well, you're going to have to become a radiologist, then a neuroradiologist, then maybe you can get a job, because there are only about 30 of the jobs in the entire country right now. And I said, that's okay, I can do that. So I went into my residency, and as I was moving through my residency, I started having doubts. Can I really spend an additional 3 years doing a fellowship? What if I do that and I can't get a job? I don't know. Maybe this isn't the right thing for my family. Maybe I'm pulling my wife in a bizarre direction. I'm going to feel bad about this. So I had an offer when I was rotating on pediatrics to stay on as a pediatric fellow and stay on as faculty at Pitt. And so I thought, you know what, this is the more responsible thing to do, because now I have a job in hand, I have a fellowship, it's valuable, I like kids, I like the environment, I can do that. As you can imagine, as I started my fellowship year, I thought, you know, maybe I'm going to regret this. Maybe I took the easy out. Maybe I really should pursue neurointervention because that was my passion. Even though I was exposed to it for such a short period of time, maybe I should do that. So I talked to my wife and we did that. She allowed me to drop out of my fellowship. They were very gracious at Pitt. I ended up going to Stanford, and as soon as I started my fellowship, I knew that I'd made the right choice. So when I finished up at Stanford, there weren't too many options for interventional neuro jobs, and they were all happening at the last possible moment. And so I couldn't do anything else because I figured I was committed to this course. And so at the last minute, Stanford itself offered me a job to stay on, and I also was the first neurointerventional fellow at Stanford. So my point is that I think you have to figure out what you want to do first. And then once you figure that out, then you have to pursue it, and you have to pursue it with passion. That's my impression.
I think for this, again, there's not a one-size-fits-all approach, but I do think it's important, like Dr. Norbash was talking about knowing exactly, what you want to pursue in terms of your passion and your subspecialty, and then go from there. Now, I think that if, for practical points, if, let's say, you are, regardless of subspecialty, you really want to get home to California, or you really want to practice in an area where the jobs are much more competitive, I would recommend reaching out earlier. Somebody like me who's quite type A, I actually started sending out feelers for jobs April of my last year of residency. I already knew I was doing breast imaging. I already had some ideas for programs. I had decided at that time that I wanted to start my career in academics. And so I literally, even without really looking at the job boards, I just emailed the section chiefs of the particular programs I was targeting. And then by September of my fellowship year, I had a job. But we're fortunate, right? Because right now the market's awesome, and you're very lucky. And I think that once you guys graduate from fellowship, it's still going to be in a good position. However, if you are someone where geographics doesn't really matter as much, and you're really looking for the nice fit, then maybe you should, not do what I did and inquire so early. And just like Dr. Bancroft is saying, if there's a job in a specific group that you are really, really gunning for, then it's even behoove you of reaching out even sooner, maybe even your second, third year of residency, to see what their trajectory is for the group, because groups, regardless of practice types, are always planning for the future.
Thank you. To the audience.
Thank you guys for those thoughtful responses. My name is Josh. I'm from Penn. I'm one of the residents there. I think the trouble with me with the first job that I'm looking for is that I don't really exactly know what I want in my entire practice for that, even for that first job. So I'm wondering if, since this hybrid area is kind of growing a little bit, and for people who are open to academics or private practice, is there a preferred path in terms of, if you are thinking about pivoting in the near future, where to start, or which one's a broader pool to begin with?
I can't say there's any data on that, but I can say just anecdotally, I think most people will tell you if you're considering both, you may want to start in academics, and then you can kind of work down less academically. But there's no right answer to that. But as far as a hybrid practice, I was a part of that, where we started a residency program within a hospital system that already had other residencies. So it wasn't the first of all programs within a GME department, but it was changing the mindset of a lot of people. So it depends if you're in a mature hybrid you want to join already, or if you're going into a transitioning one. It's a whole different feel to it. But essentially with the hybrid program, the bottom line is you're interested in academics, but it pays more, and it comes down to location. So for me personally, I moved from Mayo Clinic to the hybrid program because my husband was in charge of the group. So that was my situation for being there. So I had no ulterior motives as far as what trajectory I was going. But I find it I liked all my jobs, actually. They're great. But hybrid, really, you're working with residents, and, guy next to you right there can tell you about it. But it's fun. I like being a nerd. I like collecting cases. I like being on committees. I've published up until today. No matter where I've been, I personally do it on my own time. I have a lot of collaborators I work with. I'm refresher course chair here. It doesn't stop you from what you want to do, but I can tell you I think it was easier for me personally starting in an academic program first, because you get your name out there, you collaborate with other academic people, and then if you are a hard worker and you do your job, you can then continue on wherever you want to go and still do your jobs.
Give you the telly answer. It's pretty brief, as we generally tend to be, right, at times. Agree. I started in academics. I think academics is a great jumping point. You can do anything from there. I do tele-academics. You could talk to them. I still lecture their program. I lecture multiple programs all throughout the country. So I do board review. You can literally choose your own path.
So there are some obvious caveats. If you have financial responsibilities for your family, if you have relatives that you have to support, obviously the financial considerations are important and significant, and you should have that front and center. The other issue is, and this is a reality, for most of us, I'm pretty good at living within my means, and so is my family, but a lot of people don't have that ability. And I have a number of acquaintances who've gone into private practice. Once they made the big money, they started buying the second home, the Italian sports car, and the other stuff. So the challenge is, taking a significant pay cut is difficult for most people. So if you go into private practice first, the odds are that you're not going to come out of it until you're worn out. And we see that arc. We see people who go into private practice, they do it for 25 years, and then they want to go into academics, and they can do that. That transition is a great transition, and you value kind of the perspective that the private practitioner brings to academics. So it's not an irrevocable course, but once you go on that private practice route, the odds are you're going to stick with it for a minimum of 15 to 20 years. Anything less than that is unusual, and it's very simple, because you don't want to take a 6-digit pay cut.
I particularly can obviously only speak to one. I started in academics and then I transitioned to private practice, more of a hybrid model. For me, I benefited greatly from that because, like Dr. Bancroft saying, I had the connections. I was exposed to peer academia. There were certain things that I could take from my prior place of employment and bring it to improve, the breast program where I am now. So, but then, like Dr. Norbash is saying, yeah, if finances, if that plays a huge role, and you do start in private practice, you have to really think about that if you go into academics and taking that pay cut. You're trading one thing for another, right? You might be trading money, but for time. So you really have to think about that. And I think you really also need to think of the big picture. Where do you really see yourself in, 10, 15 years? What kind of practice? What is going to be your focus? And then depending on that, I think that could perhaps guide you with starting in one type of practice versus another.
Hi, my name is Eric. I'm the Chief Resident of the University of Florida. My question relates to the relationship between millennials and their employers. There's been a lot of commentary within the business world that there's kind of this loss of two-way loyalty. Millennials are told to change jobs every couple of years if they ever want to raise, and businesses are not investing because they're anticipating these changes. And so we've all said that you're going to change your job in radiology, maybe quickly and maybe often. But I don't know if any of you can speak to kind of that relationship dynamic as it relates to younger radiologists.
So my kids think we're boring and old and we work too much. And so I hear it from my own kids. And then I can tell I've worked with residents who are millennials. And you just have to recognize we are different, just like our parents, our grandparents were different. So we do think that we work hard, we like to work hard, and that's just where we're coming from. But as far as millennials, they've got a better insight into happiness and balance of life. I must say that's true. But I think we just all need to understand the rules. When you come into private practice, to be honest with you, it doesn't matter how old you are. What matters is productivity. How many cases did you read? If you didn't read your share, you're dumping on your cohorts. And that's how you have to kind of understand the way this works. In academics, it may be different. You may have papers you're writing, you may have your productivity, you may have your social interaction with the other clinicians that's very valuable. You may present at tumor board from your millennial perspective to other millennial clinicians that we couldn't relate to, and so that's valuable too. So it just depends.
From a business standpoint, I employ millennials. I just tell people evolve or die. That's really what it comes down to. If the new workforce population are millennials, you'd better adapt to them because they will be your employees. That's just the way it's going to be. So rather than doing a 40-hour work week over 5 days, many want it over 4 days. I adapt. You want it over 3 days? I adapt. You want to work part-time? I adapt. It comes at a cost to you too, but I adapt. Everybody should be willing to adapt. You as a worker should be willing to adapt, but your employer should be willing to adapt.
If I may, I'll share with you the conventional wisdom, and then I'll share my own perspective because I disagree with the conventional wisdom. The conventional wisdom suggests that if you employ someone earlier in their career, they're more malleable, and they also come in at a lower price point. And so they're more energetic, more malleable, lower price point, and that tends to be an advantage. But I found a lot of exceptions to the rule on both sides of the fence. And so what I typically look for is I look for individuals who have passion, who have vision, who have energy, and are compelling in terms of the narrative of why they do what they do and why they love what they do. Whether that person is in their 7th or 8th decade or 3rd decade really doesn't matter to me, because each group brings its own unique perspective and advantage if you're trying to be innovative and if you're trying to have diverse thought styles. So I think what you'll find is that that question of how do the millennials fit in is something that people talk about, but I don't see it guiding actions when it comes to a question of A or B.
So I think a lot of it really does have to do with the culture. So the way that our private practice is set up is we are split into 3 divisions. We all function independently of one another. We're covering different hospitals and things in town, stationed at certain hospitals. And in my division, I'm the youngest by 9 years, and I'm the only millennial. And you know, I have never come across a situation where, you know, my age is being counted against me. They have supported me 100%. Everything they said they would deliver on, they have delivered on. And I know it is rare, and I'm grateful, and I acknowledge that, and that is why, you know, I am just very happy where I am. But I think if you can identify earlier that this is a culture, regardless of age or, you know, the different factions of age, that's there to support you, I think that that's the most important thing, and just creating an environment of inclusivity. So it doesn't matter whether you're a millennial or one of the other generations. You're all together working to serve your patients.
Say I'm in my first job, I'm 3 months in, 6 months in, a year in, pay's okay, location's okay, I'm pretty sure I want to be in this type of private practice, hybrid practice, teleradiology, or academics, but I'm just unhappy. Can you share from your own experiences, your colleagues' experiences, theoretical experiences, what people that have been unhappy and leave early, you know, within a job period, you know, what they have been and what should be the self-reflective things? Hey, this isn't working out, I need to look elsewhere, or hey, I need to stick this out.
You got to talk to people and figure out, you know, why you're unhappy. I mean, it's very scary, I think, when you go to your first job. So one day you're a babysat resident, babysat fellow, and the next day you're staffing out residents. That's a stressful thing. Or if you go into private practice, you're instantly going from reading 25 to 50 cases a day to 200 a day. It's very shocking, I think, that people don't necessarily talk about, but we all go through it. You've got to just realize it's normal to be stressed, but if you can try to figure out what it is with you, that's the problem, because the grass isn't always greener on the other side. So even if you wanted to jump ship today, I can tell you, if you wanted to move jobs, you may have to get a different state license. That's going to take you 6 months to 9 months. You will go into a different job and you're going to be stressed from that new environment. It's money, you know, you're now responsible. You're getting income, you're paying back your student loans if you have some. Just try to talk to people, I think, and go to people who say, hey, did you experience this when you were transitioning? And I think you'd be surprised if you talk to people, everyone's like, yeah, you know, I remember that too. You'll be fine, you'll get over it, it gets better, and just talk.
I think it's kind of the real world shock. A lot of us go straight through. It's education, education, education. Welcome to the real world, right? Welcome to grind it out somewhat if you're in private practice, maybe you're tele, depending on how you approach things. Maybe academics, all of a sudden you're under the gun because you need to publish a paper. Somebody's, you know, you've never done that by yourself before, possibly. So it's sort of that real world shock, I think. It definitely happened for me. How did I get through it? I sort of like looked at myself in the mirror and said, did I want to be a radiologist? And the answer was yes. I liked helping people. I liked the job that I did. I wouldn't pick a different job. So then it was trying to find ways within the things that I was doing on a day in and day out basis to make it more enjoyable. Was it I enjoyed spending time with the residents? Do more of that. Did it mean I have to read later because I have to get through all my cases as you described because you have to pull your share? Sure. But who cares? Because at the end of the day, it's got to be fun. It's got to be enjoyable. So find the things within the job that you actually enjoy. Write it on a piece of paper, a pros and cons list. Some of those things, surprisingly, as simple as they might sound, are extremely beneficial.
We can't each solve all of our problems. And so the question is, who do you rely on and who do you go to when you need help? And how do you decide when you need help? And so I've always been promoting the concept of having a panel of mentors or resources you can go to, and I would let them know. So Dieter Ensman is chair at UCLA. He taught me how to read brain MRIs. He's my mentor. He's now my friend. But he's been helping me for a very long time when I have a problem in an area. Ruben Mesrich did the same thing for me, University of Maryland. There are a couple of interventionalists who've been very helpful for me. So having a panel of mentors to go to in times of difficulty is very, very beneficial. And also understanding in your support group, in your family, and your friends, who can give you sage counsel and who can you rely on. And I think formalizing it to some degree is a good idea. So, for example, I remember saying to Ruben at one point, Ruben, I just want to let you know how much I value your advice. I hope, if you don't mind, if I come to you time to time when I am in need of some guidance. And he said, of course. And so every time we have a conversation that's important, he kind of focuses in and he understands that he's counseling me. So I think having a panel of mentors is a good thing, and going to them is helpful. It's good for them because they're ennobled through generativity and giving to you of something that they've learned, and it gives you a different perspective. When you're trapped inside a space and you feel you can't figure the way out, someone else may be able to shine a light and show you where the exit is.
I just echo those sentiments. I mean, what I try to tell trainees when I'm giving talks or, mentoring, on the phone, email, whatever, you need to have a really diverse tribe of mentors, and actually at all career levels and even outside of radiology. Again, it is hard in that first job to know if you're just being unreasonable. I had a lot of, thoughts that ran through my head when I was thinking about switching jobs. Am I just being unreasonable and I need to wait this out? But as I started talking to all of my diverse mentors, including Dr. Norbash, who knew of my entire situation, it really brought clarity to me. And plus I was contemplating a job that was quite an undertaking for someone at my career level. But, my mentors were there for me and said that we have your back. If you take this leap of faith, we're going to be there to support you. So don't be afraid to rely on others. And it's not a sign of weakness. It's actually quite a sign of strength that you're willing to reach out to your cadre of diverse mentors for help to figure it out.
Hi, I'm Casey Reed, currently an MSK fellow at Cincinnati. So you're all currently in a variety of different practice settings, and I was wondering if you could just share one thing that you really enjoy about your current practice type and maybe one thing you like a little less, if anything.
So my current practice, it's actually fun because I'm in practice with people I've known for 25 years. So some have been my residents, some I was residents with, some I was fellows with. So I've got a long history of people. So that, for me, is really personally fulfilling that I've known these people and laughed over the years. And, we understand each other, and I taught one of them. So we do share each other's cases, even though we're in private practice. We are very efficient, but it's still academic in a way. It's fun. We're like, hey, look at this. And we do share cases. That's exciting. I like still going to my meetings and seeing people over the years. But I do like the efficiency of private practice. It's great. The PACs run smoothly. We have assistants who help us with a lot of the menial jobs, which is great. It's a group decision how that works. Some groups will pay for a lot of assistants. They'll make the phone calls for you. I like that part of it.
Best thing for me is time. It's the one thing I could never buy. I could never buy more of it. I couldn't buy more time with my daughter for breakfast. I couldn't buy more time at bedtime or when she gets home. It's like almost emotional because for me, time is truly the one thing you can never buy. So teleradiology gave me time. I will be forever grateful for time. I don't get to sit with my peers. That's the part I get disappointed about. But that being said, I've created ways to combat that.
So what I love the most about my job is being around the people that I work with. Specifically, the energy, the creativity, the enthusiasm of my residents, our T32 residents, our faculty, our staff. It's just energizing. And when you have the privilege of helping them become better, it's life-affirming. So it brings meaning and substance to my life, and that's what I like the most about it. The thing that I wish I had more of, and this is obvious, I wish I had more money and more resources. And so the ability to buy, the 17 magnet without having to figure out how to pay for it, the ability to get that second cyclotron, the ability to do all the things that would let us go to the next level, or to put packages together and hire scientists without having to figure out how to fund it. So for me, it's the bureaucracy and the financial constraints that stymie me.
I think one of the things I really like about, so I'm sort of in a hybrid model, like I said, I used to be in the Harvard institution, and, early on I knew that my career trajectory involves some sort of leadership. Well, I knew that, it was going to be quite a while until I was going to be offered a leadership position, and I knew that because I went to the higher-ups to chat about it. So I'm in a position now with my group and in the hospital system where I'm actually in positions of leadership, and I feel like I'm really able to make change at an early stage in my career. Like, I'm chair of our cancer committee at our hospital, and I'm very honored about that, and I don't take that lightly. So all of these really cool opportunities are coming my way. Yes, I traded in this ivory tower name, but I really feel like now I'm making a change. And what's even better is I'm doing it in an area in which I was raised, which is really, really meaningful and adds value, even more value to my work in saving lives of women who've known me since I was a baby. I think the one thing that maybe I miss a little bit is, particularly like how robust like our multidisciplinary conferences were, like in the Harvard system, and how you had a section of just breast pathologists. You don't have as robust and specialized sort of multidisciplinary relationships who are, doing research, keeping up on the literature. We have a great, group that does keep up on the literature and things, but obviously it's not as robust nearly as a larger academic institution. So that would be about the one thing that I do miss. But luckily, I've still maintained those connections from my old job, so I'm always able to reach out to them, which is a nice resource to have.
Can you speak to, we're at RSNA, what has participating in organized medicine meant to you? What should we get out of it as trainees? Say we're not presenting, or our presentation's done if we have one at the meeting. And maybe with that, can you share how a networking event or involvement with RSNA or ACR, whatever the case, has led to success in career fulfillment in your...
Yeah, I think it's important you guys pay your dues and become members of the societies that you want. I mean, I do belong to all the major organizations. I do pay the money. I think it's worthwhile. I, take a couple dinners off my credit card every year for paying the dues, but I think it's worth it. Once you guys can afford it and you're in practice, it's a good thing. Essentially, the big organizations work together as a group, so it promotes the science, it gives you the guidelines of how we're all going to practice in the future. It gets us to meet in different institutions. You're making a lot of friends over the years, but also the ACR is part of the lobbying situation. So with the lobbying, it's protecting our field against other subspecialties so that they understand that we are experts in what we do and we should be allowed to practice what we do. It's worthwhile to pay your dues and be part of it.
So RSNA, you're never going to see as many radiologists in one place. That's as simple as it is for me. Shaking hands, meeting the people around me. I wouldn't be sitting here today if I didn't meet Casey Reed and we were chatting about watches. That's why I'm here. And he's like, oh, what do you do? And it's networking. That's like the purest form of networking. It's the way I'm reaching as many of you. I didn't have any connection to him whatsoever until last year. Never met him. But he was like, oh, I'm doing MSK. I'm like, I do MSK. I like watches. You like watches. And as silly as that might sound, that's real life networking. I agree paying dues and belonging to memberships, that's great. But if you never actually take the time to meet the people in the room, none of it matters. So meet the people in the room.
I agree completely with that. It gives you a strong sense of belonging. I've been active in organized radiology, the Röntgen Ray, ACR, state societies, New England Röntgen Ray, Mass Radiological Society, and the Society of Chairs of Academic Radiology Departments. It's been very, very rewarding. And the thing that's been surprising for me is that you can envision initiatives that you can deploy nationally, even though it's difficult to do that in your very own department or hospital, through the power of having resources and other individuals who are aligned and others who believe in you. So it gives you a strong sense of accomplishment, a very strong sense of accomplishment. The downside is it takes time and it takes energy, and time and energy are finite and irreplaceable. So you have to be mindful of when you do it, because if you have a young family, that may not be the best time to get involved in that particular space. So be mindful in your career of when the windows of opportunity are appropriate for you to defocus in certain instances from core responsibilities you have, because that is a price that you have to account for.
I would attribute the majority of my success so far in my career to organized radiology, and it just started from joining the ACR when I was a first-year resident, and from there one door opened and another door opened, then another door opened, and and that sort of also ties in when you're a part of these organized radiological societies. Yes, like Dr. Norbash is saying, you can advocate for change that perhaps you can't do at your local level. However, it also creates a network that really can become your family. So, a lot of my really, really close friends now are actually, I met through organized radiology at RSNA, at ACR, at SBI, which is really neat. So if you by chance do switch jobs and you feel like you're, just starting out, feeling a little lonely, what have you, you have your organized radiology family to rely on, to ask for help, to seek guidance and wisdom. So that's really a huge benefit as well. So what I try to tell, trainees, I think networking is really important too. I've given, talk at ACR, some of you may know, on how to network, because it's becoming so important for what we do. So with the recipe of, networking and being a part of organized radiology societies, it can really help your career.
In your current practice setting, can you speak to working part-time, even early out of training, to pursue family, life, research, business ventures?
So most groups in private practice, you have to decide your track. Either you're going to be a partnership track, you got to understand the rules of that group, and you've got to work towards it, which is going to be full-time. I don't think it's pretty common that you can work part-time towards a partnership track, and so you have to understand there's a money difference with the buy-in and what you're going to get out of it in the future. If you want to work part-time, I think a lot more groups are offering that. Our group also offers at-home reads, so we can read essentially teleradiology from our office at home, and that in a way helps out as well. But you just have to understand what the rules are, and you may not have the same long-term possibilities within that group if you choose to work part-time. But it's a reasonable thing to do. If you have family reasons, if you have small children, if you're taking care of a sick parent, I've done all that before. I understand how it goes. So it's possible. You just have to ask the group. It's all individual.
Teleradiology, the land of part-time. You definitely have a multitude of options in tele. You can be a sole contractor, run 1099, and you can work as little or as much as you want. You just have to find people who will allow you to read for them. I can tell you that I have multiple contracts that are part-time. If I decided that I wanted to completely absolve my full-time reading, I could sustain myself part-time on probably a 3-hour basis per day, or possibly 2 days per week. It all depends on, as many people have touched on this panel, how much money do you need to live your life? Even the lectures before us, what type of burden do you have? If you don't need much, then you don't need to read much. That's the reality. Do you love reading? Read a bunch. So for tele, it does have like a catcher's catch can. You can do as much as you want. You can do as little as you want. I've seen people on both sides of the spectrum that I read with on a regular basis. Some read low volume, some read high volume. I think it also lends back to try not to burn yourself out.
This is a work in progress in academics because there is gender bias in academics, and the gender bias is reflected in the fact that women typically are the individuals who come to you and asking for part-time jobs. And what that means is they get less research time as a result of being part-time, they get less benefits, and they're slower on the promotion pathway, which means their income potential is also highly attenuated. So in principle, I think it's a wonderful thing, and I fully agree, but there are a lot of systematic changes that have to take place to provide true equity. And I think if academics more freely provides part-time positions, then we're going to have a better opportunity to approach gender equity than we have currently.
Again, echo a lot of their sentiments. I think that it's interesting in the time in which we live, because I do think that particularly with some of these private practice groups, what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing from my friends and just people reaching out to me, I think that right now with the job force sort of being so wide open and some groups really struggling to hire, that there's an opportunity right here to maybe see, ask for what you want. I mean, maybe there is a way to figure out some equation where you're not working as much, but you're getting, what exactly you want. So like, for example, with my job, I was in a position where I negotiated in a private practice group doing 100% breast. I don't take call, work weekends, or holidays, but I'm partner in July. And that's usually, it's pretty unorthodox. Usually if you're not taking call, you're not on a partnership track. But depending on the needs of the group, depending on what you bring to the table, I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask. I mean, the worst thing they can say is no.
Audience, do you have a question? All right, one last question. Closing thoughts. Give us one tip, one thing you wish you did, one key thing that we should do or shouldn't do in finding our first job.
I find saying yes has been a big part of what I think has been successful for me personally. So say yes to meeting people. Say yes to I will come early, I'll come late. Say yes to I can do that. I can do the biopsies. I will extend a little bit beyond my comfort zone in order to see what the group wants from me and how I can be successful, and just showing that you're doing it, that you're making the best effort possible and you have a good attitude. You'll be surprised how much that goes. You may not be the brightest person in the room, but if you show the effort, you're going to do well.
I very rarely strongly disagree, but I say no. I literally believe staying in my lane is what's propelled my career as fast as it has. And I have literally stood on a rock and said no so many times. And anybody resident who knows me, any attendee who's known me, they know that. I stand on a rock and say no because I love to provide the highest level of care in my space. And doing that all day, day in and day out, allows me to do it, and especially in a very effective setting in teleradiology. And kind of the example I would use is baseball pitchers. Sometimes, yeah, they bat, but they're not very good at it. They throw a lot of baseballs to be a baseball pitcher, and I read a lot of MSK MRIs to be really, really good at that and learn the subtle differences. And so I can provide the highest level of care in an effective setting to also keep time. And I'll go back to time. Make sure you value your time. There's not a dollar amount that you can really put on it because it's not infinite.
I have a very different suggestion. I suggest that you develop the discipline to not see problems without seeing solutions in every instance. So whenever you're thinking of a problem, immediately formulate a solution to it. You do not want to become a person who points out problems. You want to be the person who finds solutions no matter how ridiculous, because it is a starting point for iteration. And if you have that attitude in life, you can also solve all of the big problems. If you don't have that attitude in life, little things will trip you up.
I sort of have or still have, given that I'm still junior in my group, sort of the mentality of Dr. Bancroft in the sense that I'm a yes person. And I mean, I am now getting to the point now, getting my feet a little bit more wet, where there are a few things where I'm like, I can't do that. I don't have the bandwidth. But, I think when you're first starting out and you're really trying to learn the culture and the players, try to keep a little bit of an open mind, because, those first 6 months are crucial, and you're learning at such a rapid pace. It's like you're in fellowship all over again. You're learning the lay of the land, the culture, how to work with your colleagues, the technologists. So that's, what I would suggest. In terms of things to avoid, sort of already alluded to on the panel, don't relinquish the things you love to do. So people ask me, how are you doing all these things? Like, aren't you burning out? Well, I still do the things I love. I still, do personal training. I have season tickets for the Kansas City Chiefs because I'm a diehard, Chiefs fan. I make time to do the things I love, and that helps me sort of, prevent or burnout. So just don't forget to do the things you love, especially in that first year of practice, where you will be learning at a rapid rate and you will be exhausted when you get home.
Wonderful insights from a group of accomplished radiologists from different walks of life.